Hello, dog. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah. Oh, we just come back from what is this? Um, from a long trip, right? We went into Manila, BGC, and many kind of happy. So how are you, everyone? Whoa, thank you, dog. And And it's Christmas, right? So, yeah. Oh, 10:50. 10:50 p.m. Yeah, but I gained so much weight. You know, I uploaded a new video. So much. Thank you. I will get something. Yeah, I will drink water. Thank you. My God. Yeah. Oh, hello. I love it. Hi. I think it will be in Cebu, 18 December, in Ocean Pearl, Lapu-Lapu. Okay, that's nice. Nah, I will watch again. What is this crime documentary? Oh wow, I'm sorry for that. East Hampton, October 2021. Whoa, the crime is so early. I mean, it's still right now.
Inside a mansion on Middle Lane, millionaire Ted Ammon was at home. The alarm was turned off. The house seemed quiet, and nothing looked out of place. But by the next day, everything had changed. What was found inside that bedroom, which needed a nurturing household, one that rewarded achievement.
Oh no, I don't like it because I don't like,
KKR was transforming
you know,
into one of the most
why I don't like
powerful
it?
private.
Because like people are just talking. I like to see the real one. Like I could hear the suspect. I could hear, the witness.
And I could see a trail of blood, and it just gave me a sinking feeling. I knew right away that this was going to be a bad scene.
My God.
I've seen suicide. I've seen people disfigured in auto accidents. This is going to be over the top. I kind of went right out of the grieving mode into the panic mode of, where are my kids? There was so much.
They were married couples and partners and co-workers.
Just hit like couldn't count them
Yeah.
out.
Well, because you're far from each other, then what to do? So there were things that you cannot provide her, especially sexually. Right?
Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a sleepy town known for its rugged beauty. People that come here because they love the lakes, they love to fish, they love to hike. It's a place that makes you feel safe. But on May 16, 2005, Coeur d'Alene loses its innocence in the wake of the most brutal crime the area has ever seen. It's an ordinary night when local police receive a call from a man named Robert Hollingsworth. He's just come from a neighbor's home where he noticed what appears to be bloodstains splattered across the front door. And the word on the door. Nobody comes in the door. Not sure what to make of the strange report, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Department dispatches a deputy to check on the residence of Brenda Grover. She lives with her boyfriend, Mark McKenzie, and her three children, 13-year-old Slade, 9-year-old Dylan, and 8-year-old Shasta. It's a family that Deputy Moyer knows well.
Oh,
You would drive by, and Dylan and Shasta would come out to the car, and I'd give them sheriff deputy stickers, and they wouldn't look in the patrol car and see the lights. But the moment he arrives at the Brody home, he can tell that something's not right. It was very calm and still, and there was kind of a eerie stillness about the residence. And as I walked up to the front door, I saw the blood on the front door.
my God.
There was a smell and odor that, if you've been in law enforcement long enough, it smells like death. And as I walked around the back and saw a smear on the back door of blood, and the door was ajar. And that initially just sent a chill down my spine. My senses kind of went up. And I took a little more precautions. I called for another unit to come back me up. We walked up to the front door, and I looked into the front door, and I could see a trail of blood. It just gave me a sinking feeling. I knew right away that this was going to be a bad scene. Investigators enter the home cautiously with guns drawn. turned the corner. What appeared to be a young male, face down, female face down. It appeared to be they were bound and their heads were mutilated. And then I saw the man. I saw the man laying on the floor, and I could see that he too had been bludgeoned multiple times in the head and had suffered severe head trauma.
The three bodies were placed one next head to toe, head to toe, head to toe. Mark McKenzie, Brenda Groening, Slade Groening, all bludgeoned to death.
And I remember thinking to myself, my God, this is a mother. You know, this is a mother who has been tied up and murdered right here along with her own child. And how horrific that was. I'd seen suicides. I'd seen people disfigured in auto accidents. This was kind of the over the top. I really hit home, hit my heart. It's hard for me not to get emotional. You don't prepare for that in law enforcement. But I still had to reach down and say, you know what, I got to do my job. I've got kids in this house. As we moved through the house, there was blood stains virtually everywhere in the house. In every single room, on every wall.
Officers performed a thorough search of the remaining rooms of the house, including Dylan and Shasta's bedroom.
There was blood in there, and I just remember thinking, oh no, not the little ones, not the little ones. We began to wonder possibly if they had met the same fate as the others in the house. Their bodies could have been disposed of in another way.
But after scouring every corner of the property, the youngest Groening children are nowhere to be found.
We wondered if possibly that they had fled out into the
Hi, Richard.
Jafta. I went over to the creek area, which is over here to my left, and called their names out. Jafta, Dylan. I got no response. You get kind of a panic feeling in your heart. You know, we have mountain lions and all kinds of different critters running around here. I wouldn't want to
Oh, it went well. We've been into Manila. We've been into BGC, Puerto Princesa, Palawan, Cebu, Malbuan. And my husband is already go. But he moved from, like he go to Australia already.
And that's when we really start activating resources, additional agents. The first clue that jumped in mind were the kids staying with their father. And it was the first door we knocked on.
Yeah.
But Steve Groening seems as shocked and puzzled as everyone else. You know, I obviously had one dead child. I knew that there were two missing, and that just changed the aspect of everything. I kind of went into right out of the grieving mode into the panic mode of, you know, where are my kids? I checked with friends,
Hello,
relatives, and
Lynn.
boys where they could
Oh
have been
no,
staying.
how?
We exhausted all of those
Yeah,
possibilities.
I'm here in
And
the
they were
bed.
nowhere to be found. We were very concerned that we had an abduction. Law enforcement immediately puts out an Amber Alert, informing
Of
the public to
course.
be on the lookout for the missing children. The community of Coeur d'Alene joined together and united in a way I've never seen
Thank
before because
you.
they wanted to find Shasta, they wanted to find Dylan. As searchers continue to comb through the surrounding woods,
Yeah, because it's okay.
crime scene
I will not
technicians
have
process the
any,
scene.
what is this?
But despite
Like
the seemingly forensic
any
nature of the crime,
copyright
the killer
with this?
or killers
Only
seem
music.
to have covered their tracks perfectly, leaving no clues as to Shasta or Dylan's whereabouts.
My God.
And if they're not found within the first 24 to 48 hours, they generally are found dead. I think actually the more time.
What? Have you seen the one about the dead kids in the suitcase from a car stuff that was posted not long ago? Yeah, I sure. Yeah. And then that was a black American woman, right? And then, yeah, I think so. Two kids, right? Yeah, of course. She was the aunt. I know.
Time went by and they weren't finding bodies, that I actually had more hope that they were alive somewhere. The day after Mark Mackenzie, Brenda Groening, and her son Slade are brutally slain in their own home, investigators in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, are painfully short on evidence. And more importantly, have no
Oh,
clue as
yeah.
to the whereabouts of the family's youngest two children.
We were organized around one common goal, and it was finding Dylan and Shasta.
With a killer or killers on the loose, and two youngsters gone without a trace, local residents are scared to death.
There's a fear factor
Yeah.
that permeated
We really need guidance and blessing, especially if we are angry, you know.
the peaceful community, this idyllic community. And a lot of the members of the community were very adversely affected by all this.
But until they generate some leads, there's nothing law enforcement can do to quell the town's panic. And so far, they've got almost nothing to go on.
In a murder case where you've got a fingerprint on the door, you've got a bloody shoe print, or you've got a witness, you've got something to work on.
Thank you,
We
Lynn.
didn't have any of that.
Thank you so
We didn't have
much.
anything to work with. So the best thing we can do is learn as much as we could about our victims.
Brenda and Mark had been dating for about 7 years, and they had a great relationship.
As you less knowledge to think smarter, but our irresponsible gaming teachers, just like your profile. On responsible gaming, it's such a wonderful possibility. Even now I'm getting age now worry.
And they had a great relationship.
Mark commuted every day to a manufacturing job in Spokane, 40 miles away. And Brenda had recently given up her cleaning business to be a stay-at-home mom. They seemed to be a picture-perfect couple, but there was a wild side to them as well.
Brenda and Mark were known to be partiers. They wanted to have a good time. They had that side of them that enjoyed to, have a beer or two or a few other things.
Still, by all accounts, they seemed to be living a happy and comfortable life.
Mark was a great guy, and he loved those kids. They weren't his kids, but he loved them, and he took very good care of them. This is why we can't understand why this happened.
Investigators agree, and based on the brutality of the crime, they begin to piece together a preliminary profile of the killer.
And when you see multiple impact injuries like that, such violence committed upon a person, we're taught that that's a personal killing. Oftentimes that's done by somebody who knows the family, somebody that is filled with a lot of anger towards those people.
But agents struggle to make sense of the kidnapping.
Why would you take the kids out of the house, kill the parents to do so? Why wouldn't you take them on a bus stop? Why wouldn't you take them when they're walking to school? So it appeared to be some kind of a revenge motive, someone that was close to the family, someone that wanted to get up close and personal to the victim.
As the desperate search for Dylan and Shasta goes national, federal, state, and local officials join forces to start questioning potential suspects.
One of the first leads we looked at is that father and mother were divorced. Father had a separate residence. We had received allegations that there was a volatile relationship that had existed between Steve and Brenda. And so
Yeah,
naturally
I do.
would have to rule Steve out before we could move on to some other things.
Steve also admits that just 2 days prior to the murders, he and Brenda had a blowout over the kids.
Steve and Brenda had a hard time having a workable relationship after the divorce.
We were aware of some ill will that existed between them pertaining to child custody as well as some property issues.
Then, a The televised plea by Steve raises even more eyebrows.
Please release my children safely. They had nothing to do with any of this.
Everyone that was out there and part of the media and even law enforcement were shocked because the statement, they had nothing to do with this. Well, what is this?
Investigators administer a polygraph test to Steve and record a strange fluctuation when they ask him if he knows where his children are.
And because of that, we did have to continue to look into this activity, basically to make sure that there wasn't anything that we missed along the way.
Crowley insists that he was home alone on the night of the murders. At first, investigators are dubious, but what they find next changes their minds. Police were able to get the cell phone records and my computer records and know that I was actually at home on a computer or on my phone. But it isn't long before suspicion falls on another set of family members. Steve and Brenda also have two adult sons, Jesse and Vance, and both have had their share of run-ins with the law. My two oldest boys, have been in a lot of troubles as they were in their early teenage years. A lot of people make reference to their drug problems and stuff like that. Authorities soon discover that Jesse has an airtight alibi, having been incarcerated on burglary charges when the murders took place. Investigators then interrogate Vance and come away convinced he had no involvement either. But questions remain about a possible motive for the killings.
We began to get some tips about a barbecue that occurred the day prior to the killings.
So the cops started looking at everyone that was at the barbecue. Did somebody get in a fight? Somebody owed somebody money? Was there something else that happened that would have made someone at that barbecue turn around and say, I'm going after these guys the next day?
We found a fingerprint on the same door that was bloodstained there at the scene. That fingerprint returned to an individual who we were aware had attended the gathering the previous day.
His name is Gary Youngwood. Police soon discover he has a criminal record. According to Jesse Brody, Youngwood also owed his mother and Mark $2,000. Mother and Mark $2,000. There was the hope that this person would lead to the resolution of the crime to find out what had happened to the kids. Either this person may have witnessed something that could help us solve the case, or maybe the person themselves were involved in some way in the crime. But when members of the task force try to locate him for questioning, Youngwood is missing in action.
It was difficult to find. We did serve some search warrants on his cell phone, began to track him by cell phone.
There was a considerable amount of resources that were spent in locating this person and in discovering what it is that he knew. A follow-up call to Youngwood's parole officer reveals that the day after Brenda Grody, Slade Grody, and Mark McKenzie were bludgeoned to death, Youngwood notified her that he was leaving town for a short vacation in Boise. One of the thoughts is that he's avoiding contact with us because he knows something. The FBI is exploring a new technique called brain fingerprinting that is designed to establish whether or not a person has knowledge of a crime by recording the brain's response to images flashed on a computer screen. Some believe brain fingerprinting may someday be used like lie detector tests in criminal investigations. Nearly 48 hours after the triple murder in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, law enforcement is working hard to track down Gary Youngwood, whose fingerprints were found on the victim's bloody front door. He had contacted his probation officer, and at that point she told him, well, the police are looking to interview you about the murders, and so he did come back, I believe, on his own. Investigators grill Youngwood for hours, but he denies having anything to do with the murders or Shasta and Dylan's disappearance, and he offers to take a lie detector test to prove it.
A friend of mine called me.
He passed his polygraph,
So it was apparent to us fairly quickly that although he was a person of interest at the time, we pretty much washed him out of any involvement and any knowledge of the crime.
having ruled out the most obvious suspects. Investigators turned their attention to the thousands of tips pouring into the crime hotline.
One allegation was that this was a biker hit, and so we started looking at biker gangs. And maybe there was some sort of vendetta that existed. Maybe there was money owed. Maybe somebody insulted someone else's girlfriend. Who knows?
And when the medical examiner identifies the murder weapon, it gives the biker gang theory even more credence.
The weapon used to bludgeon the victims appeared to be a hammer with a cross-hatched face on it. And that is the sort of hammer they would find as a framing hammer or as a drywall hammer.
Some gang expert threw out the fact, well, if they were killed with a hammer, that sounds like outlaw bikers. Was this a biker gang that rolled through town? We just didn't know.
It was in the motorcycles. So when we started getting these allegations of a potential biker hit, it made a little bit of sense to us.
But investigators can't link any particular biker gang to the scene. And it doesn't make sense that they would take the children, who have now been missing for almost 3 days.
I never gave up hope that we would get the children back in this case. Statistically, however, in child abduction cases, it is very unusual. More often than not, these cases end up in a same.
Hello. I got two people here.
Bolstered, however, when results of the FBI's blood analysis returned from the lab. Not a single drop of blood at the crime scene belongs to Dylan or Shasta.
When the lab results came back and we determined that the blood was Slade's blood throughout the house, we were relieved to know that the kids might possibly still be alive somewhere.
But even the most hardened investigators are shaken when they learn how 13-year-old Slade's blood got spread throughout the house.
I know that was personally very traumatic for me to think that Slade was walking through the house injured and leaving a trail of blood throughout the entire house, through every room of the house, and then finally dying at his mother's feet.
Investigators are now confident that the children were not murdered with the rest of their family.
Now we knew that the children had somehow either left the house on their own or been removed from the house, and there was no evidence to suggest that they had been killed in the house. We believed that they were alive somewhere, and there was nothing that we would stop at doing in an effort to find them.
Itong espesyal na SAR sa pag-isa ng pamilya namin ang siyang dahilan kung bakit napakasikat ng kainan at umabot sa higit 4 na raang.
And there was nothing that we would stop at doing in an effort to find them.
Then, on May 20th, just 4 days after the murders, there's another twist in the case. The toxicology reports reveal that Brenda and Mark both used marijuana and methamphetamine in the hours before they were killed.
Are there any violent drug gangs who would do a crime like this if they were owed a debt that wasn't being repaid? Could it be somebody that happened upon the house who was high on drugs, taking drugs and unleashed a lot of violence on the family so quick that they couldn't do anything about it at all?
Scouring their criminal databases for answers, federal agents stumble upon a local skinhead gang that's been breaking into people's homes and robbing them at gunpoint.
Maybe this home invasion group broke into the house, found the victims, and when they discovered there was no money and there was no drugs, decided to take it out on the victims. We were pretty optimistic that we may get something out of focusing on this particular group. But what we couldn't explain was, how did the children factor into this? Everything else looked good, but when we got back to the children, they were an anomaly that could not be explained.
The FBI consults its narcotics informants to find out if there's been any talk of the murders in drug circles, but the lead quickly goes cold. And after several weeks, authorities are still no closer to making sense of the crime.
We brought the FBI profilers in because we were at a loss. We have a situation where the children are gone and a family is murdered. Therefore, does this fit with any known profile of any criminal that you guys know out there? We brought them from two different units. One unit that dealt with serial killers and one unit that dealt with child abductions.
But even the top behavior analysts in the country are stymied by the puzzle.
Very quickly, they told us there's a lot here that doesn't make sense. There's a lot here that isn't typical of these type of crimes, and that's their expertise.
We could find similar crimes when it came to our legend of murder victims. We could find similar crimes when it came to the abduction of our children. But when you put the two together, we couldn't find anything. Why would you just not murder the entire family? And so we kept coming up with all these theories as to why someone would take two children from the house. Was it to hold them for ransom? Was it to sell them into slavery?
The one thing they left us with, though, is the key to solving this crime is answering the question, what happened to the children?
If you can find out why the children were taken, then you will solve the crime.
It's been almost 2 weeks since Dylan and Shasta Grody vanished in the dead of the night, and the task force is no closer to figuring out what happened to them or why their family was murdered.
Yeah, I had high hopes so that they were alive. I just didn't know whether I would ever see them again in my lifetime.
My one thought was, my God, I hope they're alive. But as time went by, it got worse and worse. I was more and more sure that something had happened to them.
By the end of May, there are 150 federal, state, and local investigators toiling around the clock and working every angle.
I was running on very little sleep, as was most all the investigators in the case. I don't think many of us slept any more than a couple of hours a day for probably the first 10 days of the investigation.
2 more weeks go by, and despite the heavy news coverage, the case is going nowhere. Until a local woman comes forward with a promising new lead. On the night that Dylan and Shasta's family was murdered, she was traveling between Coeur d'Alene and Spokane sometime after 2 a.m.
She told us that she saw the vehicle, a dark-colored vehicle. She believed
Oh, thank you. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support, my friend. Yes, I'm just here in my room watching CI.
it was a Lincoln pull off on the highway just to the east side of the crime scene. She believed she saw 3 male adults in that car. She called that in because she thought possibly that car may have been involved in the crime.
At first, the lead doesn't seem very promising, until investigators discover that the spot where the three men pulled over is less than a mile from the home where Brenda Groney, Slade Groney, and Mark McKenzie had just been bludgeoned to death.
Shortly afterwards, we received another informant. That particular informant came forward anonymously, and he felt that his associates had been involved in something very serious. He thought that he overheard them talking about possibly placing some bodies in some abandoned mine shafts over in the Silver Valley.
The tipster gives the names Mike Hardwell, Ray Nando, and Ben Westerly. Detectives soon learn that two of the men have a criminal record, and another striking detail rises to the surface.
We found that they drove a car very similar in description to the one that the lady had called in previously. When we did some analysis of their cell phone activity, we noticed that there was indeed some cell phone activity in the area of the crime scene on or about the time of the crime.
Kapag pinili niyo ang Tala bilang inyong trusted online lending app, pinapangako ko, puro na lang pangako, kulang naman sa gawa. Ibahin mo ko. Dito sa Tala,
activity in the area of the crime scene on or about the time of the crime.
After almost 2 months of fruitless searching, it seems the task force is finally closing in on a viable lead.
Thank you.
But just as they're setting up surveillance on their suspects, the case takes a stunning turn. When the phone rang at 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, I wasn't quite prepared for what I was going to hear. I couldn't believe it. I refused to believe it at first, and even said, "You've got to be kidding me." FBI agents are quickly brought up to speed on a local waitress who has a shocking story to tell.
I had just come back from my break. I automatically checked my section, and I noticed two new people in my section. I get a clear view of the little girl. It was an instantaneous, oh my God, is that Shasta? She remained with her head down. Her hands were in a prayer position, stuck between her legs. Her whole body language just screamed, "Help me."
But the waitress doesn't miss a beat. She takes their orders, then sneaks to the back of the restaurant and tells her manager to call 911.
I saw the squad car pull up. I walked out, and as soon as the officer stepped out of his vehicle, I told him he was going to need to call for backup. I was positive it was her, and he was going to need more help.
When backup arrives, the police cautiously enter the restaurant and escort the man without incident to their squad car.
The officer had grabbed my elbow, and all he said was, "Stay with her." I said, "Honey, what's your name?" And she said, "Shasta Groney," and she just started bawling. When we first got the call that Shasta was found, I was elated. I was ecstatic. Although we had so many questions. Who was this person that Shasta was found with? Where's she been this entire time? Was this a person that just found her wandering on the street? Was she dropped off? It was unbelievable. And of course, all of us wanted to know, where was Dylan?
Shasta is rushed to the hospital for evaluation. And after a harrowing 2 months, Steve Groney is reunited with his daughter.
Kind of, laid my head on the pillow next to her was she eventually kind of opened her eyes and said, "Daddy," and gave me a big hug.
At the command center, investigators interrogate her companion. He is identified as 42-year-old Joseph Edward Duncan III from Fargo, North Dakota.
I thoroughly expected to find that this was going to be one of the many, many names that we had dealt with in the investigation. And when they told me the name, Joseph Edward Duncan III, I was perplexed. I had never heard that name. And I can recall saying, who?
We started doing all our record and database checks, and we come to find very quickly that he's a level 3 sex offender who is a fugitive from a molestation case back in Minnesota. Level 3 sex offenders pose a potential high risk to the community because of their history of sexual assaults. In fact,
My God,
his
yeah.
first recorded sex crime occurred in 1978 when he was just 15 years old. 2 years later, he was sentenced to a Kansas City prison for molesting a teenage boy.
My God.
There, he was diagnosed as a sexual psychopath and underwent years of intensive psychological evaluation.
Sad.
On the surface, he seemed to be showing signs of reform until 2004, when he was charged with sexually molesting a 6-year-old boy at a playground in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota.
My God.
But Duncan was not ready to go back to jail. He managed to borrow $15,000 for his bail and immediately left town. He had a webpage where he wrote extensively about society's persecution of sex offenders. He knew he was going back to prison for the molestation in Minnesota, and he made a decision. He decided, I can either stay here, try and fight the case and risk going to prison, or I can go on the run, take whatever money I have, and I can live out my ultimate fantasy. That was his goal.
Yeah.
His final blog entry, written just before the murders, is especially menacing. In it, he rants about striking out at society. But Duncan's motives
Yeah.
no longer
Sad for the
interest
kids, my
investigators.
goodness.
Their sole concern now is the whereabouts of Dylan Groney.
On Alibaba.com,
Why can
over
they cannot?
200,000 close
What is
lists
this?
powered by deep
Like,
search with up to 20% off.
why they cannot
Please
make
cancel your order.
girlfriends and
Cancel your order of multifunction pressure cooker worth $5,495.
Their sole concern now is the whereabouts of Dylan Groney.
I did make an attempt at interviewing Mr. Duncan. However, Mr. Duncan invoked his Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Determined to find Dylan, investigators search Duncan's vehicle and discover a treasure trove of evidence.
Very nice car.
The shotgun, Duncan's laptop computer, his GPS device, an empty package that the plastic zip ties had been, a key piece of evidence was a small microdrive, a 4 gigabyte microdrive that contained a lot of still images and video images of the children while they were in captivity.
Okay.
And so the investigation then ramped up tenfold in an effort and in a belief that Dylan may still be alive.
But they're unable to find the murder weapon or anything that might lead them to the missing boy. But I still had hopes that they were going to find Dylan alive somewhere. Running out of options, police turned to the only other person who may have information on Dylan's whereabouts, his sister Shasta.
No.
We assigned an investigator to conduct interviews with Shasta to get the full story from her to try to assess whether or not she had actual knowledge or not.
The little girl begins to tell her story, and it's a tale more haunting than anything the seasoned investigators have heard before. I can only imagine what those children went through. It's more than a person should have to bear.
I don't know. But she's still so young.
Police in Idaho have finally rescued 8-year-old Shasta
8-year-old.
from her abductor,
Oh my God.
fugitive sex offender Joseph Edward Duncan III.
8 years old.
When I heard Shasta had been found, I just cried. And I just thought, thank God, thank God. And then a second later, I thought, where's Dylan?
Yeah. Because the brother, which is, what is this? The brother was just being killed, like the boyfriend, the mother, and the eldest son is 13 years old, and she is 8, and there is another young boy, but missing.
About it because now I understand that they don't know where Dylan is still. So it, boy, just emotionally that was a roller coaster. As federal agents search Duncan's laptop and GPS for leads on the missing boy, Shasta tells investigators her story. On the night of the murders, the little girl awakens to the sound of her mother's voice calling her and Dylan to the living room. There, she sees Joseph Duncan standing over Brenda, Slade, and Mark with a shotgun.
He removed the two children, Shasta and Dylan, from the home and laid them in the grass out on the back of the house.
Yeah.
He did not want Shasta and Dylan to see what he intended to do to their family.
When he's done, Duncan drives the children 95 miles away to a campground outside the town of St. Regis, Montana. Once there, he proceeds to sexually assault both of them.
Oh,
The children must have felt absolutely helpless and alone out at these campsites. They're in the middle of nowhere. They saw no other humans, no other vehicles. You don't even hear of the presence of man out here. So they literally must have thought they were at the ends of the earth.
My first thought was, how can I kill this guy? I had a lot of spiritual outbursts of evil. 6 weeks into the children's captivity, Duncan takes Dylan into an abandoned cabin where he tortures and molests him. A few hours later, Duncan shoots Dylan in the head in front of Shasta and burns his body.
my God.
I thought to myself, it was shocking, and I thought, what a monster this guy was.
To know that there's people out there that can inflict this type of pain on a child, it shakes your whole foundation of beliefs. And it's overwhelming.
Duncan then tells Shasta that he spared her life because she taught him how to love.
Oh, I don't believe for a minute that he was planning to let Shasta live. And she was lucky.
The next day, using data from Duncan's GPS and laptop, investigators locate the campsite where Shasta says her brother was murdered. Searching the area on their hands and knees, Bureau agents soon find what they're looking for, a fragment of bone, and at a nearby culvert, more bone fragments.
Very sad.
And at a nearby culvert, more bone fragments. When they told me they had conclusive evidence that Dylan had been murdered, I pretty much lost it. That just broke my heart. Dylan was such a loving, tender-hearted kid, and eventually find out all the things that
Yeah,
he did
but only bones that they got it.
that was hard to take. When investigators confront Duncan with all the evidence against him, he finally confesses.
He wanted society to know how bad he was. He wanted to make sure that society was harmed or injured by what he had done. He had two goals. His goal, again, was to live out what he thought his ultimate fantasy was, which apparently involved murdering and assaulting children, and to exact revenge on society, revenge against what he thought society had done to him as a registered sex offender.
Duncan goes on to tell authorities how he prepared extensively for his crime.
Starting before he ever even left North Dakota, he started assembling equipment and items that he would need.
Heading west, Duncan goes hunting for targets. Once he reaches Idaho, by sheer chance, he comes across the Groney home.
As he comes down this hill, one of the first homes he sees Shasta playing in the front yard. He surveils the house. He spots
Relax, you're not yet there.
So he spends the next day and a half or so checking out the house. He had brought the weapon of his choice to kill the family with, and that was a hammer. He had thought about everything to make sure that he was going to commit the perfect crime.
In the early morning hours of May 16, Duncan decides it's time to make his move. He enters through an unlocked back door.
My God.
And finds Brenda asleep in the living room.
Oh, Jesus.
He trained the weapon on her and he said, "Where's the man?" He instructed Brenda to wake Mark up. And he instructed Brenda to put the zip ties onto Mark. He wanted them to believe that this was just a burglary. He felt that was a better choice than to let them know that his intent was to truly take the young children. He thought if he told them that, they would fight to the death.
Once everyone is bound and gagged, Duncan takes Dylan and Shasta outside so they won't witness the deaths of their family members. He wants them to go with him quietly. The rest of Duncan's story tracks with Shasta's account, but one aspect remains unclear: why he ultimately returned with the little girl to Coeur d'Alene.
Some people think that he took her there because he wanted to be captured. Some people believe that he took her there because he was out of money. My personal belief is that it was Shasta that brought Duncan back to us, because Shasta was able to befriend Duncan and that allowed her to survive the whole ordeal.
No. Yeah, she's kind of smart.
On October 16th, 2006, Duncan pleads guilty to 3 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Mark McKenzie, Brenda Groney, and Slade Groney. He received 6 life sentences.
6 life sentences.
Then, on December 3rd, 2007, Duncan pleads guilty to 10 federal charges in connection to the kidnapping and sexual abuse of Dylan and Shasta and the murder of Dylan.
I was not surprised that Duncan pleaded guilty. I think he's a coward. I don't think he wanted to get up on the stand and have to testify. And I was so pleased that he had pleaded guilty so that we wouldn't have to go through the hell of going to court every day and seeing this man.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, but good thing that the baby, like the girl, has the mind of shouting when she was there in the restaurant. Did not no notice. Thank you, Laurie. Oh, she was kind of crying in the court.
Joseph Duncan is the personification of evil. He's the boogeyman. He's everybody that we should need to fear.
Today, the Mackenzies and the Groneys do their best to move on from the tragedy and to always keep the memories of their loved ones close.
Thank you.
I talked to Mark on the phone a couple of days before this terrible thing happened. And thank God I had told Mark that I loved him. And he had told me he loved me back. And that's the last time I spoke to him.
Shasta is 12 years old now. It's amazing that she acts just like any other kid her age. Yeah, my son Jesse is 22 now. He had his first kid back in February of 07. They named him Dylan Slade Stephen Rooney, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I'll just have to prepare another crime. But I have to go. I go to pee. I go to drink water again. Oh, mercy, mercy. Shy guy, shy guy. So, should I have another crime? Thank you. Would you like, how about your shadow? How about your Richard? A 11:49.
I knew for sure that something was wrong.
You needed the victim, and that's the only way to make them.
He became so compulsive and fantasized about it for a long time, thought about it, planned into it, and then executed his plan.
I didn't know how he disappeared. Because there was nobody who saw him. He basically was removed from the face of the earth.
He was shot execution style. He was put in a wood chipper. He was fed to pigs. The body was thrown down a well.
It moved quickly. In 75% of these cases, the child was dead within the first 3 to 4 hours.
Oh yeah. Missouri.
Ridgewoods is a small former mining town located in eastern Missouri where everyone seems to know everyone else.
It's a small community. We're spread out real far, so there's not a lot of people, so your neighbors aren't real close. It's the kind of community that you just feel really safe at. You feel like nothing's gonna happen and everything's gonna be okay.
But as Pam and Craig Akers will soon learn, tragedy can strike in the most unlikely of places.
2002.
It's an ordinary Sunday, and the Akers are waiting for their 11-year-old son Sean to return home after spending the afternoon with some friends.
He asked if he could ride his bike to his friend's house, and he told him, yeah, just be home by 5 o'clock, and I gave him a kiss and told him I loved him and wanted him to ride his bike out the driveway and start down the road.
But by nightfall, there's still no sign of Sean, and Pam is growing more concerned.
Still
by the
2000.
I started going down a list of his friends and asked if he
2002.
had seen him, and majority
Yeah.
of them that I called said they hadn't seen him that day, and I thought, okay, somebody had to have seen him. He had to play somewhere because he's not going to play by himself that long. That's when I knew something was wrong, and I decided to call the police and report him missing.
Deputies from the Washington County Sheriff's Office and the local fire department soon arrive at the Akers home. But by then, the worried parents have already taken matters into their own hands.
Got a picture, scanned it in, made up a flyer. By that time, we started calling our relatives to let them know that Sean was missing, asking for their help to come look for him. Probably within 30 minutes,
Yeah.
everybody in the community knew about it.
But I even still watch those movies like when it was
Asking if they could help search.
1980s.
Volunteers scour the area. Pam and Craig stand watch at the house, hoping Sean will turn up on his own.
We were sitting on the front
I
porch,
got even like
just looking out into the darkness,
a
and
scene yesterday that
you could see the
or
lights,
cried
flashlights, just shining here,
crying
shining there,
yesterday that it
and
was
hearing
a
people calling
woman
Sean's name.
like she pretended
But as night
for
turns to
I don't know
morning, there's still
50
no sign
years.
of Sean.
She pretended that she don't know about the mourner, but it was
Craig's
her.
next step is to
It was
notify
her
the
who
National
murdered her
Center for
friend.
Missing and Exploited Children, who in turn contacts the FBI.
I was sent down here
Yeah.
initially just to determine what was going on, what actually happened.
First, FBI agents and local authorities begin reconstructing the chain of events that led up to Sean's disappearance.
Yeah.
We started interviewing some of his friends and the individuals that knew him well to attempt to determine what they might have believed happened to Sean. And the hopes were that Sean had just gotten lost in the woods or was injured and just couldn't get home or had stayed at someone else and just failed to contact his parents.
But Craig Akers assures investigators that Sean isn't the type of
Yeah,
kid
and
who
it
would just
just means
wander
like
off or run away.
after she was like
School, no major problems there.
50 years old.
He loved video games, computer games.
I don't know, I forgot. It was,
Baseball was a real passion of his. Just
but
a
yeah,
general good
she
kid.
confessed that it was her who murdered
When it comes to missing
her
children,
best friend
the parents are often at the top of the suspect list. But Pam and Craig are quickly
because
ruled
a
out,
boyfriend
as is Sean's biological
maybe
father, who
like
passed away several years earlier.
she was
My impression of Pam and Craig were that they were good parents.
she was jealous. She wanted to have a boyfriend, and then only her best friend has the boyfriend. So yeah, She killed
No
her.
other leads to speak of. Investigators are left with little more than a few eyewitness accounts detailing Sean's movements on the day he vanished.
He went behind the Ridgewood School, and there he met his sister and her friend at that time, and talked to them for a while. Then he got back on the road, rode through Ridgewood, all the way down past the Catholic Church. He was observed by two of his classmates in school at that time. About 3:30, he came down Little Indian Creek Road, where we're standing now.
But it was nice sometimes if I watch crime scene because
Looking for some
I will see places.
Sean was seen
They
riding his
say
bike
that
near
is
the Ridgewood Highway
America.
and Highway 47.
America is just like sometimes
That's when
Philippines.
the trail goes cold.
There
Investigators
are some
canvassed the
woods,
area in question,
forests.
looking for anything that could shed light on Sean's disappearance.
I know. Yeah,
We were looking
jealousy.
for any other
Jealousy can
searches
kill
clothing,
people. Oh my
his
God.
bicycle, tires,
Much
marks on
better
the
we don't
highway,
have that
any of
kind
those
of
types of things that
personality.
could have indicated that Sean was involved in an accident. But there's no sign of Sean or his bike. The concern was that Sean could have been injured, gone off on the side trail or something, fallen into a sinkhole or cistern, or some of the caves that are in the area here. So at this point, we weren't sure what had happened. The following 48 hours brings in scores of tips, but not a single clue as to Sean's whereabouts.
It was kind of disheartening because as time goes on and he still hasn't been found, your mind starts going to, okay, why haven't they found him yet?
And after 3 full days of searching, the family has to face the growing likelihood that something more sinister may be at work.
We're pretty sure that it wasn't going to be simply a case of somebody just stumbling across him on a bike trail or something like that.
When we did not locate Sean, and we started getting these tips that were kind of outside the area of the search area, we realized that we may have a criminal investigation. Now, only one thing is clear. The clock is ticking, and for 11-year-old Sean Hornbeck, it may already be too late.
Oh
In
my God.
terms of child abductions in general, for offenders who are motivated to kill children, there have been studies to suggest that children will die within the first 72 hours.
4 days after 11-year-old Sean Hornbeck disappears in rural Missouri,
It's 4
authorities
days.
realize they're facing a possible abduction, or worse.
Sometimes we have incidences where children are kidnapped by acquaintances. We have children that are kidnapped by strangers. Sometimes they're recovered alive and sometimes not.
For me, as a mother that still had a child out there missing, my worst fear was that people was going to go on their lives and never even have that thought again. And you had to find ways to keep their name and their picture out there because you cannot let anybody forget.
The case did affect me personally because I do have 3 children, and that I wanted to have some resolution for the family. As Sean's parents hold out hope, authorities begin the task of contacting and questioning sex offenders in the area.
During the investigation, I actually found out a number of suspects, and you do in any case like this, but none of it proved out.
There wasn't anything new happening. No one had found anything.
Oh.
There was no evidence. So it just got harder and harder.
In the meantime, investigators have to consider all the reasons someone may have taken Sean.
In 1970, if a child was abducted, we assumed it was a ransom, money-motivated abduction. Now, when you hear a child's been abducted, we assume that it's a sexually motivated abduction, but it's not always true, and it's not always the circumstance. For example, we've had a rash of cases where child abductions are motivated by revenge and gang activity and drug dealing activity. So it's somebody, you double-crossed me in a drug deal, you didn't pay me, so I kidnapped your kid.
Yeah.
With this in mind, FBI and local police continue to chase down any lead, no matter how far-fetched. He was shot execution style. He was put in a wood chipper. He was fed to pigs. The body was thrown down a well. There were a lot of bogus leads, and there were a lot of people that became suspects because of these bogus leads. It can be frustrating. Conducting an investigation like this is frustrating because you're just continually, you don't see the end. Then, almost a week after Sean's disappearance, their determination finally pays off. An anonymous tip comes in about two women in a mysterious front-end collision that occurred in the area where Sean was last seen, around the same time he vanished. So we didn't know what to believe at that point, and I guess that's probably why we continued to follow up on stories about him being hit by a car. The information that we got was that there were at least two girls in a car that had hit a dog that evening. Investigators must now consider the possibility that the girls didn't hit a dog at all. Through investigation, we had, in fact, located the individuals that were involved in the accident. The FBI and the authorities were able to track the car down, the two girls. They both admitted hitting a dog with the car.
Was weird for the other case that the girl lived for so long.
By the FBI.
Yeah, but at least it's good, right? She's the answer of everything.
From a dog. Through both
Yeah,
and through the interview,
to make friends, I think so. And woman is so powerful, right? Girls are
But the
powerful.
dead end soon gives way to speculation that Sean's disappearance could be drug-related. We started receiving numerous phone calls that Sean had been hit either by individuals involved in the drug trade or that he had walked in on a drug transaction or that he had come upon a drug lab that was in the rural area. And so then we had to try to verify or disprove these tips as they came in. There was a lot of drug leads that came out that he was taken because of drug money. By November, members of the Washington County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and Prosecutor's Office have gathered volumes of information, but nothing is panning out. It became pretty evident that we were making a lot of progress.
We had made buttons that had Sean's picture on it with the tip line number on it. There wasn't a day I didn't walk out this door that I didn't have that button on me. There wasn't a day that I wasn't giving out flyers.
I always took the position that until some piece of evidence indicated that Sean was deceased, I was going to believe that he was still out there someplace. Then, while canvassing a neighborhood near Sean's school, investigators stumble onto a man named Lou Kent. He is forthcoming with questions and admits to hearing about Sean's disappearance. But the more they speak with him, the more authorities find his behavior peculiar. He was very suspicious, told me about dreams that he had. And in those dreams, he thought the child was buried in a pond bank with his bicycle near a beaver dam. The reason that was significant is because nobody up to the time had given me any information about where they thought the child was buried. In 2005, the FBI created a special team called CARD, Child Abduction Rapid Deployment, to assist local law enforcement with any case involving the mysterious disappearance of a child.
Okay.
It's been weeks since the disappearance of 11-year-old Sean Hornbeck, and authorities in Missouri are honing in on a man named Lou Kent. That gentleman was significant because of the things that he related to me in interviews. Things that the child he thought was buried somewhere. And actually, we didn't discount anything that he said because he couldn't, unless you got some evidence, you're not going to discount anything that you hear. For several days, investigators conduct interviews with Kent in an effort to get to the bottom of his strange behavior. His alibis changed from time to time. At one time he'd give one alibi, the next time he would give another. It was hard to pinpoint it down and even to find witnesses that could validate any of the alibis for him. That's what kept him on the radar screen as a prime suspect.
Investigators soon learned that Kent had in fact approached the acres several times shortly after Sean was reported missing.
He would apologize to us for what happened. He would give us drawings of different places that he said he would find kids' clothing at, and it just got real scary because you thought, okay, maybe he is trying to tell us something.
It was obvious that he was disturbed. You could tell that he'd been crying. He was very frantic, and just his appearance and his demeanor, you knew that something just wasn't right. But with no direct evidence linking Kent to the abduction, authorities must continue to look into other leads. Then, a few days later, the investigative team gets another break.
One of the canine search teams that's used by the FBI in this area had dogs showing indication on the banks of a lake just a couple of miles from here.
We asked a local dive rescue squad that had the diving capabilities to come out and assist. Motorized submersible cameras search the lake bottom, but there's no
I'm kind of
indication
sleepy.
of a
It's
sunken
12 now.
body.
Maybe I'll just have to,
Eventually,
I have to,
searches go
what's this,
but the Akers family is not
sleep
satisfied.
right now.
It looks like they covered it
Do it
pretty
tomorrow
well.
again.
Like we still had
Bye-bye, Richard.
7 dogs, or
Thank
however many
you.
dogs had indicated that there should be something there.
Yeah, I really like to go to sleep now. I'm trying to close my eyes. Yeah, now I really like if I close my eyes and my God, it's 12:07. But I fall asleep this afternoon. But I guess it was not enough because it's too cold here, and maybe my body is still reciprocating. Sometimes your body cannot sleep too well, or yeah, things. But yes, I'm happy. I'm happy you're here, and thank you for being here in my live stream. Can you hear me? Bye bye for now. Bye bye. Thank you. Yeah.